So, in some dimension, I'm supposed to believe that a woman like me, that's as capable as I am, is not willing to perform sexually, and as a result, the best I can hope for is what I got, which is I got my own room, and there's a retiree who's legitimate enough for what is allowed to be considered legitimate in Texas, and he gets to avail himself of whatever benefits he gets of being so hospitable, and I'm hushed up. And they've already hooked it up so that whatever I produce, they've already got it automated and distributed, and I'm just going to have to deal with that. But in the meantime, there's other things going on, right? And so the thing with the Bureau of Land Management, for instance, and the little training exercise they hooked up with the fucking Army last year, and the Army Futures Command and its small business operations domestically that have absolutely no accountability, and a biological attack that has already covered up for Congress centralizing everything under COVID 19 relief so that they can obligate us to an inordinate amount of debt as the systematology has already been set up for privatization of certain sectors and for a way to waive off or otherwise offset liabilities on the corporate level using access to all the federal assets that now they are going to be able to launder stuff through for an indeterminate amount of time. And meanwhile, we're supposed to see some sort of positivity or hope in these protests that have been happening in manners that have really just been giving a different set of complementary benchmarks to the deaths and the cases of COVID that have been reported, while people ostensibly are supposed to be discussing and advocating for racial justice. And these racial justice campaigns have primarily targeted police and have tried to get some sort of leveraging or leverageability in terms of police technology and police abilities. And what the main things are that I understand is A, nobody's asking for pension reform or an accounting or audit of investment firms or auditors connected to those investment firms that are participating in these municipal portfolios and allowing for the accrual of these liabilities that are then leveraged for global racketeering that results in lots of casualties and actually finance little guerrilla campaigns or little mercenary campaigns and setting off all over the world. Nobody's talking about that. What they're talking about is increased body cameras for police and more public information about the disciplinary record of police officers, while there is supposed to be some sort of demographic shift in terms of representation of people in police leadership, as well as, I believe, a request for a decommissioning or a reduction of police armament. Okay, but what else is going on is that all of these have also been connected to a major municipal bonds, the intro to which is explicating that it's an emergency situation connected to COVID. And in the course of these municipal bond offerings, the issues are being distributed in the course of public announcements about things like protest and riots, perhaps even some sort of police encounter, quest for justice, ostensibly around racialized police violence, and maybe property damage, like when buildings get set on fire. And these bonds can have terms of anywhere from 5 to 10 to 25 years, depending on where you are. And these bonds are not just for the general obligation of the city, but can be for housing, not exclusively, but can include public housing, and also for school districts. And I just want to remind you that when I first went to the DOJ in Chicago and I was talking with those guys on the streets while we were like trying to get food, and one of the things that I was talking about was I have a feeling that something about the police bonds and the bonds people get when they go to jail have something to do with the muni bonds. And that if that's the case, then we need to deal with the bonds specifically in order to reduce the possibility that fraud involving all the different transactions connected to the bonds of these matters can literally result in a fatality or a racialized fatality, specifically involving police or involving people on the street. And that's what I was already talking to people on the street about that. And they said they supported me. Hey, you should go talk to the Department of Justice about that. I hear they're setting up a commission to investigate what happened with that guy. And that's why I went to the Department of Justice, right? But in the meantime, what have I learned? That a lot of this crap is set up in the schools. That you're a kid going to school and those teachers don't fucking say shit about how the bonds for the schools that pay their pension funds take class rosters, take graduation records, take demographic data from the students they're serving, and use that as part of the underwriting on the bond prospectus when it gets sold. And so you're hanging out a year, maybe 2 years later after that bond issue, and somebody's getting an interest payment. Or somebody's leveraging that bond because bonds have a very special way about them. And then your name happens to fit into the matrix. Nobody's talking about that. Fine, don't talk about that. Don't talk about that. How's this? Futures contracts. And the fact that we're in the point where we're about to swap over, we're going to flip over 30 days after. Singapore, an insurance company in Singapore, sponsored by Citigroup, by the way, closes out its first round of short-term life insurance policies for people in COVID. You can take out a short-term life insurance policy in case you get COVID, and then you'll have a life insurance policy on COVID that the people that are listed as your beneficiary get. What does that have to do with anything? How many other places have been doing that? How many other places have been setting up short-term life insurance policies for people, specifically around COVID? And if you get COVID, or somebody with that life insurance policy gets COVID, then you get the payoff if they die. But what if they don't die? Well, you still got that expired life insurance policy. And who would be eligible? Well, I don't know. Where are the hot spots? Who are the demographics that are most affected? So if you were taking out a bunch of life insurance policies, short-term life insurance policies for people, what kinds of people would you focus on? And if they don't come due, damn, you lose out. You didn't get the life insurance policy didn't come due now. But what happens 30 days from now? What happens 90 days from now? 6 months from now? A year from now? And meanwhile, you've got a bunch of people on the street being surveilled in a very specific, highly surveilled area already. It's already been marked off, already been gridded, already been targeted. The facial, pictures getting captured. And here's the thing, even if they're not taking your picture, getting your facial recognition, how many people got their cell phones on site, sending a text message, taking pictures, posting them up on their social media? How long are you going to keep that record up there? Somebody gets a call out for an inventory on a day of people in a certain place. There's all kinds of ways you can cull that data. And then you got a bunch of futures contracts on expired life insurance policies that match certain demographics. And maybe you tried to re-up the option or discount sell it on a secondary market. Nobody would do anything like that, right? Nobody would do anything like that. No. Okay, never mind.